A lot of details finally on those measures that are going to be implemented in the coming weeks. The most concrete measures that were announced today mention, of course, some of the ones that you just listed, the ghost guns. That was one of the key issues that Joe Biden and his administration want to deal with, those sort of kits that allow people to simply build a gun from parts. And of course, these parts don't have serial numbers and therefore are untraceable. And so what the administration announced now is that they want to treat those kits to build those ghost guns as if they were guns, so that they would have to have serial numbers on those parts, and people who buy those kits would have to undergo the same regulations, for example, some limited background checks, as if they were actually buying a gun. Then there are those stabilizing braces. That's something that is alleged to have been used in that shooting in Boulder, Colorado recently. These braces simply turn basically a pistol into something more lethal while avoiding the regulation for those more lethal firearms. And what the administration wants to do there is to make these braces basically fall under the same regulation as those more lethal firearms. And then there is that question of red flag laws. The red flag laws, there are some states who already have them. Basically, it allows law enforcement or family members to go to a judge and to ask a person to be temporarily blocked from obtaining a firearm in the case that they are a threat to themselves or to others. And what the administration is doing there is that they're going to put forward some model red flag laws to give the opportunity to different states to pass those laws state by state as they wait for a potential federal law to be passed. And then there are more symbolic measures like that report on gun trafficking, that hasn't been updated in more than 20 years. The fact that they're nominating someone to lead the ATF, those are more symbolic measures. And the most symbolic measure of all was actually something that happened in that Rose Garden, is the fact that these remarks were done in front of a few dozen representatives of different gun control activists, including Gabby Giffords, who was the lawmaker who was actually shot by a gunman a few years back and who survived and who has since been a relentless activist for gun control.
Ketivan, from on the surface, these are what seem like groundbreaking changes, but it's not the first time U.S. presidents have decided to issue executive actions to try to tackle gun violence. So how much concrete change can these actions actually achieve?
Well, they are important in the sense that they show the willingness of this administration to do something about the issue of guns here in the United States. But of course, they are pretty limited in scope. And that is why you heard Joe Biden saying, I'm going to keep pressing Congress to act on gun control, because he knows that these are simply executive orders. They're elements to push for more control, for help, for modeling red flag laws, for example, but they're not going to make any direct change in the coming weeks and months. What he wants to see is Congress act, because that is the only way that a real law that will have a direct impact in the lives of the millions of Americans, that's the only way it's going to happen, if it goes through Congress. But Joe Biden also knows that the Democrats have an extremely slim majority in the Senate. He mentioned some of the bills that are currently already in Congress. They passed two of those bills just recently, just last month in the House. There was a bill on expanding background checks and a bill on closing the so-called Charleston loophole. That is the loophole that basically allows someone to obtain a gun without a background check if federal investigators take too long to do that background check. So those two laws have passed the House, but they are stuck because in the Senate, Democrats don't have 60 votes to pass those laws. And so it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's not something that is new. This has been the problem in the United States for years and even for decades. Everyone thought that after the Sandy Hook mass shooting, that something would change, that new laws would be passed, and it hit a wall in Congress, in the Senate specifically. This time around, that is what some people are fearing is going to happen again, is that you're going to see the overwhelming majority of Americans support some of these gun control laws, especially for background checks, but they feel like they're going to have the same problem, not getting enough lawmakers to actually support those gun control bills. And not just Republicans. You're seeing some more moderate Democrats who are very careful as to how they position themselves on gun control, because it is an issue that is extremely divisive in Capitol Hill, in Congress, because a lot of lawmakers feel that if they go out too hard against guns, against the Second Amendment, that they might not be elected the next time around.